So you want to get into retro video games.
Retro or die.
Good for you! You're about to embark on a very strenuous but rewarding journey when it comes to hunting and finding these video games from your childhood. By the end of this video, you will know some of the tips and tricks that should be passed down on to new collectors that you don't ever hear talked about. By the end of this video, hopefully you will be able to go on your game hunting adventures without getting screwed over or being discouraged on finding retro video games. My name's Forrest, this is the YouTube channel Retro or Die, and I hope to teach you in this video the ins and outs of retro video games for brand new collectors. If you're feeling disenchanted by the modern video game industry and you want to get back to your roots and you're sick of being this guy over there, come on, bro, get on the team! Come on, what is that? Man, can't you play? Oh yeah? Well, your mom eats. No, you're the No, you're the Nobody likes that kind of guy. Don't be that guy. Especially if you're in the ages from 20 to 45. Actually, just don't ever be that guy ever. Number 1. Don't believe the hype. With many brand new collectors coming onto the scene with the retro video game market, you are led to believe that there are certain games that are worth astounding amounts of money that are the rarest of rare. You need to have them in order to have a perfect collection to stand out and be respected among your brothers and sisters in the retro video game club. That is simply not the case. First of all, if you're getting into retro video game collecting, thinking that this is some sort of clique niche where you're going to establish friendships based on what you own, stop thinking that way. In fact, if you're getting into it for that reason, just stop. Save yourself the money, save yourself the time and the hassle, because I guarantee you by the time you get to that point where you think you're up there, and if you started your collection based on that, you're going to be getting out of this scene a lot faster than you got in. Collecting retro video games is not just something we do because it's something for a look at me factor. Now granted, there are those kind of people that have video game collections for that reason, but I guarantee you the majority of people that collect retro video games are not in it for the fame and the glory that comes with having these collections on YouTube. Trust me. Now, if you grew up with a certain type of game or certain games that you remember specifically that you want to get back into, those are the ones you should start with. Don't be going out and looking for these high-priced items and these really obscure video games, because I guarantee most of the time you're either not going to find them or you're going to get discouraged right away because you're going to go on eBay, you're going to go on Craigslist or Amazon and see these games are marked up way above than what they should be, and for a new collector, that could make you want to leave just as fast as you thought you were going to get in. Say you grew up with The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past back there. That's a good game to start with. Sure, the game's a little bit pricey nowadays with the invention of the modern smartphone and people thinking that they have gold when they really are just sitting on a $3 game. But Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past is one of those games that's a classic, timeless game. Get yourself a Super Nintendo, get yourself that game, and start playing. Start there. Start with what you know. Start with what you loved. Start with what you like. Say you like side-scrolling beat-em-up games. You start out with Ninja Turtles, you start out with Batman Returns, you start out with Maximum Carnage. Don't be going out and trying to get Earthbound right away. Unless you have expendable income, you can do whatever you want. But this is for brand new collectors that are just trying to get into it. And if you don't have a lot of money to spend and you're going between paycheck to paycheck, which most people are nowadays, there's no shame in it. That's just the way our society is and the way the economy is for most people now. But if you don't have that much money and you're looking to get into this hobby, don't be trying to get freaking Earthbound day one. Unless that was like your most sought after game as a child, or your favorite game as a child, then I guess I could see you wanting to get that right away. But you're going to be spending a pretty penny for it unless you're going to find it in a flea market at a thrift store. And let me tell you, out of all the years I've been doing this, I've never seen an Earthbound cart in the wild ever. Number 2, just because a game is expensive doesn't mean it's rare. These two titles are proof of that. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and Contra on the NES. These games, if you go on eBay or go on Amazon or a retail store, they're going to run you 30 plus. It's not because the games are rare, it's not because they're hard to find, it's because they are classics. It's because most kids that grew up on the Nintendo remember those two titles above most of them, aside from your Marios and your Legend of Zeldas. Now, just because these games are high-priced items doesn't mean that you can't get them cheaper anywhere else. You can find deals. You can go find these games out in your flea markets, out in your thrift stores. You can find them just about anywhere. And say you're wanting to start out an NES collection and you want those games right away, the good thing is they're always going to be available. You can find these pretty much anywhere you go. Any retail video games shop that sells retro games, anywhere on eBay or anywhere on Amazon, you're going to be able to get these games readily fast. The only problem is they're going to be marked up, like I said, 30 plus. Now, for the newcomer, you could be like, wow, what the heck, this game is like 30 years old. I remember playing this as a kid. How is it so expensive? Well, because they are popular, because most people wanted them. Number 3, there is a difference between a loose copy of a game and a complete copy of a game. Be sure to know the difference before going out game hunting. This will save you a lot of time and a lot of money in the end. A loose copy of a game, no manual, no box. Normally doesn't even come with one of these dust protectors. But a loose copy of the game lowers the price dramatically compared to having a complete. And the reason for this is because these boxes and these manuals, once they're gone, once they're destroyed or whatever, they're gone forever. These will never be physically reproduced again. These cartridges, on the other hand, are very easy to find, normally were highly produced, and people didn't throw them away because it's the actual game. Back in the 80s and 90s, people weren't thinking about collectability. Most people weren't thinking about, if I keep this game in the next 20 years, next 30 years, my video game collection is going to be worth this much money, or it's going to look this cool when I want to finally decorate my office in the future. No, people weren't thinking like that. Like most kids, such as myself, we got the box, we looked at it for a little while, and we kept the manual. The box for itself, though, we were kind of like, we just threw it away. And most people did, because we looked at it as, garbage. We weren't thinking of it as like a VHS tape where, you take the game and you put it back in the box once you're done with it. Most kids weren't going to do that. And let's just face the facts here. Convenience is everything. And when you can have the game right there in front of you and just pop it in instead of having to take it out of a box, what are you going to do back in the early 90s and 80s? Number 4, look out for bad resellers. Now, I don't want to scare you, but there are resellers out there that are going to look to screw you. What I mean by this is there are resellers out there that are going to go to your local thrift stores, go to your local flea markets. Before you're even allowed to get in some cases at your most flea markets, they'll go around early, buy up all the games while they're cheap, and then list them back up higher than eBay prices. These are the kind of people you need to look out for. These are the kind of people that will lie to you and claim that they know a whole ton of information and knowledge on video games and pretend they're the know-it-alls of everything that they're selling, when in most cases these people have no idea what the difference is between, like I said, a complete copy of a game and a loose copy of the game. Some people just assume that a loose cartridge is worth just as much as a complete copy, or sealed copy even, of a game. I'll insert a clip right here showing one of my experiences at the flea market of a guy trying to sell a top loader, the inferior model of the NES. Asking for the top loader.
Top loader with the dog on and all the
$150 for a top loader? You can kiss my ass with that shit. This is what you run into most of the time when going to thrift stores and flea markets, especially if they're a specialty shop that sells video games. Most of the time, if you're at a thrift store, avoid these people, because these are the ones that are going to have above retail prices. These are the ones that are going to talk down to you and act like they know everything about the industry, when literally they know less than the only information that these people mostly have is what a smartphone can tell them, and it's not very well researched. Number 5, set goals for yourself. Think of one game console you want to collect for, or 2 at most, and set a goal of collecting those. Don't go crazy and try to collect everything as fast as possible as you can, because once you do, you will hit burnout. Most people do, and for new collectors, this is very easy to do because you're excited. You want to recreate your childhood. You want to collect everything. You want to have a gaming shelf that looks like this one. You want to have an office that's full of stuff that you loved. And as exciting as it is, and as much stuff as it looks like I have behind me, this is years of collecting. And most of this, I would have to tell you, is from my own personal collection as a child that I still kept. Not setting goals for yourself and going out and spending as much money as possible to get as much as possible, as fast as possible, will lead you down a dark hole of kind of regretting what you're doing. Unless you're someone that just won the Powerball lottery and you've got the expendable income out of the ass and you can just buy whatever you want, then I wouldn't worry about it. But for most people who work a steady full-time job or 2 full-time jobs just to make ends meet, don't be spending a bunch of money trying to get everything as fast as possible. You're gonna dig yourself a shallow grave, and soon enough you'll be in it. Number 6, it's okay not to complete a game library. Now, I see this all the time online. People freaking out thinking that they don't have the collector credibility because they don't have a complete collection of the certain console that they're going for. Let me let you in on a little secret. Most people are never going to get a full set of the gaming collection that they're going for. We're talking about systems that span sometimes over 700 games. And some systems have games that are literally impossible to find, such as stadium events, such as a Nintendo World Championship kart. There are other games in the NES library that are very, 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 very expensive that I would never feel comfortable paying $1,000 for a NES kart. Now, for some people, like I said, with expendable income, that's no problem. Do what you want with your money. I'm not here to judge you on that. You get your games in whatever way you feel is necessary, go ahead and do it. More power to you. But for most people, going out and looking for video games on a normal average budget, you're not going to be wanting to spend thousands. You're going to be wanting to get deals. Getting stuff as cheap as possible. $1, $2 games, $3 games, even sometimes $10 games at most. Number 7, network with people. Make connections. Make friends. I guarantee you in this day and age, you can be the lone wolf. You can go out and look for video games by yourself, and sometimes you'll come out ahead, and sometimes you'll find out you overpaid for a game that is really like $3 and you paid maybe $20 for it. These things happen more times than not. But when you have friends that are collecting as you are, and you build these relationships with people, this is how you establish being able to do trades, being able to do meetups and go to conventions and find games together, and also help each other with your guys' collections. This is how the ecosystem of the retro gaming scene works the best. How do you do things like this? You can look on YouTube and find people that may have YouTube channels in your area that do retro video games. Number 2, you can go to a retro video game retail shop and talk to the store owners, talk to the clerks, ask people if there's conventions around. Number 3, you can go to some sort of Facebook group. I don't have Facebook, but I know they exist for retro video games. Or you can go to Twitter and do the same thing. These sort of things help establish these relationships so you can move forward and hopefully make friends in the same scene as you. Remember, for some people, yes, collecting video games is a competition. But for most, it's about enjoying the hobby. It's about establishing and making relationships and having friends that are in the same kind of hobby and interest you are. This isn't a race, because I guarantee you if it was, all it would take is one millionaire to buy everything at once and we would all lose anyway. Always remember, there's someone that's always going to have a bigger, badder, and beefier collection than you. They're going to have a super expensive game that no one's ever going to be able to find. Some people have them sealed, some people have them complete in box. Some people have the most hardest and rarest to find games, such as a Nintendo World Championship card or stadium events, and that's fine. You should be happy for the people within the hobby that have those games. It's not a competition for most, like I said. But just remember, don't get an ego. This may look like I've got a lot of stuff here, but compared to some people on the internet, and a lot of people who've been collecting a lot longer than I have, I've been collecting for about maybe 6 or 7 years now. There have been people that have been collecting since the early 90s that have collections that are close to complete or are complete. Just because your collection is big doesn't mean it's the best, and it shouldn't be about who has the best collection. So remember that. Don't let ego and cockiness get in the way of having fun with what you're doing. Number 8. Play your games. Now I know some people get into retro video game collecting for a status or a symbol of being this person with all the games, all the hard to find rare games. But for a lot of us, playing these games is what makes the collecting part fun. You find games that you never heard of. A week ago I found a game called Supernova on the Super Nintendo by Taito. I never knew it existed. It's a side-scrolling shooter game in outer space, and it's hard as balls, but I enjoy it a lot. I never knew it existed. Play your games. This will help you establish even more of knowing what kind of games you want to go towards if you don't know all these different types of games that are out there. It also helps you broaden your horizons when it comes to games on other consoles too that you might be collecting for. There are side-scrolling shooter games for the NES, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, and the Nintendo 64. And if you were only used to beat-em-up games, and you finally got your hands on a side-scrolling shooter and you like it, this opens up a new window for you of collecting certain types of games. Number 9. There are a lot of bad games out there. And sadly, most of them are marked up ridiculously high in price. So do not fall into the trap of thinking that, oh, this game is really expensive? It must be really, really good. No. There are games out there that are utter crap, such as Stadium Events, which is basically one of the worst games on the NES. A game that's not expensive and just as popular, Mario Duck Hunt. So just because a game is worth a lot of money does not mean that it's an actual good game. Most of the games on NES and Super Nintendo, I hate to say it, are not that good. There are a lot of good games for both consoles, but a majority of the super uber rare games are just not good, and that's because either they were low run because of how bad they were, or they came out at the end of the video game or they came out at the end of the console's lifespan. So don't go into a retro video game store and think because they have a copy of Stadium Events and you see it for thousands of dollars that it's a good game. It's not. And money should not equal the playability for a game. And if you want to know what a certain game is like, you have a smartphone nowadays. Everyone does. With the power of technology in your hand that fits in your pocket, don't be the guy that spends 20 grand on freaking Stadium Events, gets it home, and hates it. And then regrets even getting into the hobby to begin with. Don't be that guy. Number 9. Look at a bunch of different YouTube channels when it comes to retro video games. Don't just look at my channel. Look at other video game channels such as The Game Chasers, Pat the NES Punk, The Angry Video Game Nerd, to name a few. These channels will help you establish multiple different opinions on games and collecting. Now, everyone has their own plans of where they want to be when it comes to this hobby. Everyone has different objectives of how much they want to collect for a certain console. But it's really up to you to do your own research and to know what you're going for. In this day and age, ignorance is not bliss. You have a smartphone that has all the information about all these video games in your hand. Take advantage of it. Get to know it. Love it. It's your best friend. These resellers will lie to you like I've told you before. They've lied to me. They lied to about everyone that I know that's in this hobby. So really, it's up to you to do your research on these things. Make sure you don't go out into the wild without your Master Sword, which would be your smartphone when it comes to this hobby. It's dangerous out there. Take your smartphone with you. And number 10, this is probably the most important thing on this list. Make sure you're having fun. Make sure you are enjoying this hobby. Don't be going in making harsh decisions on yourself, spending all kinds of money that you weren't supposed to spend. Getting a video game is not worth not having your bills paid. I'm going to tell you that from personal experience, and I'm sure many people that are in this hobby will tell you the same. Always make sure your stuff is taken care of, but enjoy this hobby. If it means only going out and buying one game a week or 2 games a month, then so be it. These collections will build over time. This isn't a competition, like I said. This is about getting into the hobby, having fun, establishing relationships with people that are in the same hobby as you, and just overall having a good time doing it. These collections build, okay, over years of time. It takes effort. It's about the journey, not the destination. As cheesy as that sounds. It's about going out to the local thrift stores, going out to the flea markets, hitting the pavement, and finding the deals. This isn't about being able to just go straight onto your computer, buying up an entire collection one day, and then being like, oh my god, what did I do? When it gets there and you're footed with the bill, that will probably be thousands and thousands of dollars. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're a brand new collector, let me know in the comments below if this video helped you at all. There isn't many videos like this when it comes to giving a sort of kind of survival guide tip kind of thing when it comes to going out and starting buying retro video games for the first time. When I started going out and getting retro games again, stuff was still moderately priced. I was still being able to find deals on games pretty regularly. I found Mega Man 1 through 6 for $30 on the NES. That just goes to show how much things have changed. Most people see Mega Man now and see dollar signs instead of actually seeing fun, sadly. If you guys want more videos like this, getting into in-depth details of how to maneuver your way around a flea market and talk to people in thrift stores and build these relationships with people and just overall survive getting through maybe your first year of going out looking for retro video games, let me know in the comment section below. My name's Forrest, this is Retro or Die, I'll see you later.